over panic. You stop proving, stop chasing, stop bending. Your energy shifts. You're no longer reacting to her. You're grounded in yourself. And that's when her ego feels something it didn't expect. This time, losing you might actually be real. In this video, we're talking about the moment her ego can't handle losing you, when your silence, discipline, and inner calm hit louder than any words ever could. If this resonates, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's get into it. Number 1. When you stop explaining. She was used to you over-talking, softening, circling back with, "What I meant was," she was used to you managing the moment, managing her reaction, managing the emotional temperature so nothing ever felt uncomfortable. And then one day, you don't do that anymore. You say what you mean, once calm, clear, grounded, and you let it land where it lands. No follow-up text, no nervous clarification, no emotional footnotes. And that's the moment her ego starts to feel something it can't control. Here's why this hits so deeply. When you were explaining yourself, she still felt centered. Your words revolved around her comfort, her understanding, her approval. Even disagreement didn't threaten her sense of power, because you were still trying to be understood by her. But when you stop explaining, you quietly remove her from that position. You're no longer asking her to validate your meaning. You're trusting yourself enough to let your words stand on their own. And to her ego, that feels like a loss. Think about a simple example. She questions a boundary you set, or pushes back on something you said. The old version of you would rush in to clarify, soften, reassure. "I didn't mean it like that," or "I'm not trying to upset you," or "Let me explain better." But now, you calmly say, "That's what I meant," and you move on. No tension, no defensiveness. Just quiet certainty. That calm is unsettling, not because you're being cold, but because you're no longer negotiating your self-respect. This is where Stoicism quietly enters the room. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that peace comes from acting in alignment with your values, not from controlling how others feel about them. When you stop over-explaining just to keep her comfortable, you're doing exactly that. You're choosing inner consistency over external approval. You're not trying to win the moment you're honoring your character. And a man who does that becomes emotionally unmovable. From her perspective, something important has shifted. Your attention is no longer tangled in her reactions. Your sense of self isn't up for debate. She can't pull you into long emotional negotiations or twist your words into leverage. And that's when her ego struggles. Because she didn't just lose a conversation, she lost the version of you that needed her understanding to feel secure. And if you're watching this thinking, "But won't that push her away?" Here's the deeper truth. The moment her ego can't handle losing you is never about silence or distance alone. It's about realizing she no longer has access to your inner balance. You're still calm, still respectful, still present, but you're no longer explaining yourself into a smaller version just to be accepted. That's not withdrawal, that's strength. And this is exactly where the energy between you shifts into a different gear. You're no longer trying to manage how you're perceived, you're simply standing in who you are. That quiet self-trust becomes the bridge into the next level of this dynamic, where your stability speaks louder than any reassurance ever could. So, before we move on, pause for a second. If this resonates, if you've ever caught yourself over-explaining just to keep the peace, show some love to the video. Hit like, drop a comment with your thoughts, or simply type, "I stand by what I say." Let's see how many men here are choosing clarity over approval. Number 2, your silence feels like power. And this is the moment her ego can't quite process what's happening. Because for the first time, the emotional dynamic is no longer being managed by your effort. Before, there was movement texts, explanations, timing, emotional adjustments, trying to keep things smooth, trying to keep connection alive. Even your overthinking was a form of pursuit. But now, the energy has shifted. You're not reaching, not correcting the story, not trying to be seen the right way. You've stepped back internally, and she feels that space more than any message you could send. This isn't ghosting. This isn't manipulation. This is your nervous system relaxing while hers starts to panic. You're not chasing clarity. You're sitting with what is, letting the noise settle. And that stillness is louder than any paragraph you could have sent. Here's why this hits her ego so deeply. When a woman is used to having emotional access to you, your attention, your reassurance, your reactions, that access becomes part of her sense of control in the connection. Not in a villain way, just in a human way. We all get used to certain responses. But when you go quiet in a grounded, calm way, not cold, not bitter, just settled, her ego loses its reference point. She can't tell if you're hurt, if you're moving on, if you've emotionally detached. And what the ego can't measure, it can't manage. That's when the mental spiral begins. Why isn't he reaching out? Did he stop caring? Did I misjudge how much he valued this? And notice, you didn't do anything dramatic to cause this. You didn't post quotes. You didn't give speeches. You didn't threaten to leave. You simply stopped overextending yourself emotionally. That quiet shift forces her to confront something uncomfortable. You might be okay without her validation. This is where Stoicism shows up in a powerful, real-life way. Epictetus taught that sometimes improvement means being okay with being misunderstood. Your calm silence is you choosing truth over image, letting your actions speak without fighting for a perfect narrative. You're no longer trying to control how she sees you. You're focused on being aligned with yourself. That's Stoic strength in motion. Not loud, not performative, just internally solid. Think about the difference. The old version of you might have sent one more message to clear the air, one more explanation to make sure she didn't get the wrong idea. But the more you try to manage perception, the more you give away your emotional center. Now, you're okay if she doesn't fully get you right now. You're okay if the story in her head is incomplete. Because your peace is no longer tied to being understood immediately. And that's exactly the moment her ego can't handle losing you. Not when you argue, not when you threaten to walk away, but when you stop needing to be emotionally held in place by her responses. Your silence says, "I'm stable on my own." And that's powerful because it means if she's in your life, it's by connection, not by emotional dependency. So, if you're in this space right now, don't break the silence just to relieve temporary discomfort. Sit in it, breathe in it. Let your nervous system learn that calm is safer than chasing. Because the quieter you become inside, the more your presence and even your absence carries weight. Number 3. She tests you, you don't flinch. Late replies. A sudden cold tone. A little mention of another guy. It's a subtle poke to see if she still controls your emotional weather. But you don't snap. You don't scramble. You don't overreact. You stay centered. And that rattles her ego because she's not used to stillness that strong. Stoic example. Cato was known for keeping the same steady posture, whether praised or mocked. That's the energy here. Your stability doesn't change based on her moods. Now here's where this connects to the moment her ego can't handle losing you. Because what her ego feeds on isn't love, it's emotional leverage. It's the quiet reassurance that she can shift your mood with a sentence, that she can disappear for hours and still have you waiting mentally at the door. When that stops working, something inside her hits resistance. Not anger at first. Confusion. Why isn't he reacting the way he used to? And that question is the beginning of the shift. Picture this. She takes longer than usual to reply, expecting you to double text or send something to pull her back in. Before, you might have done it, not out of weakness, but out of attachment, out of wanting connection. Now, you see the delay, you register it, and you simply continue with your day. Gym, work, friends. Your world doesn't pause. That's not a performance, that's alignment. And when she notices that your attention isn't automatically chasing her absence, her ego feels something unfamiliar: loss of control. This is where Stoicism becomes real, not just quotes on a screen. Epictetus said, "We suffer not from events, but from our judgments about them." Her tone shifts. That's an event. The story that, "This means I'm losing her," that's the judgment. When you stop feeding that story, you remove the emotional spike. Your calm becomes unhookable. And to someone used to emotional reactions, that feels like distance, even if you haven't gone anywhere. What really unsettles her isn't silence. It's your emotional independence. You're still kind, still grounded, but there's no urgency leaking from you anymore. No subtle, "please choose me" energy under your words. You're not trying to win the moment. You're just standing in yourself. That's the posture of a man who knows he'll be okay either way. And her ego can't negotiate with that, can't manipulate it, can't soothe itself with it. This is the moment her ego starts to feel the possibility of losing you for real. Not because you threatened to leave, not because you made a speech, but because your nervous system is no longer tied to her behavior. You're not cold, you're not punishing, you're just steady. Like Cato in the Roman Forum, same presence whether the crowd cheered or insulted him. Your emotional climate stays the same, and suddenly she's the one feeling the shift in temperature. And here's the part most men miss. This isn't about making her uncomfortable. It's about becoming so internally stable that you no longer abandon yourself to manage someone else's moods. When that happens, attraction changes, respect changes, and yes, her ego feels it. Because the man she could emotionally steer yesterday is not the man standing in front of her now. Number 4. You choose respect over access. And this is one of the clearest moments her ego can't handle losing you, because access was never just contact. Access was certainty. It was the quiet comfort of knowing she could disappear for hours, show up with half effort, and still find you right where she left you, available, open, ready to pour energy into making things smooth again. But then something changes in you. Not loudly, not dramatically. You don't post speeches, you don't send paragraphs, you don't punish her with silence. You simply start moving like a man who values his own time. You stop rewarding inconsistency. You stop treating your attention like a free sample. Before, she had unlimited access to you, even when her effort was minimal. Now, you match effort. You protect your time. You don't announce it. You simply adjust. And her ego feels it immediately. Your attention is earned, not owed. Here's what this looks like in real life. She texts late at night after ignoring you all day. "What are you doing?" The old you would have jumped at the chance, hoping the conversation leads somewhere. The new you reply when you can. Calm, simple, maybe even the next day. Not to show her, but because you are actually living your life. And when she tries to pull you back into the old rhythm where she leads, and you follow, she hits a wall. Your time isn't automatically hers anymore. Or maybe she cancels plans last minute with some vague excuse and expects you to keep offering dates like you're auditioning for the role of good guy who waits. But now you just say, "All good. We can do it another time." And you mean it. No resentment, no lecture, no second attempt 5 minutes later. You don't chase to fix the awkwardness. You let her sit with the consequence of her own inconsistency. That's the moment her ego starts to panic, not because you became cold, but because you became solid. Because the power dynamic quietly flips. She used to feel like she could dip in and out and still keep your emotional door wide open. Now that door has a lock on it, called standards, and she can't ego her way through it. This is where Stoicism fits perfectly, because Stoicism isn't about winning someone back, it's about winning yourself back. Seneca said, "We don't lack time, we waste it." And a lot of men waste time trying to earn basic effort from someone who only shows up when it benefits them. So when you stop giving your time away to inconsistency, you're not playing a game, you're practicing discipline. You're treating attention like a treasure, not a giveaway. And listen, this doesn't mean you become rude. It doesn't mean you turn everything into a power struggle. It means you stop trading your self-respect for a little bit of access. You stop being the man who's always reachable no matter how he's treated. You become the man who can be present, but not always available. That's why her ego can't handle it. Because when a man chooses respect over access, he becomes harder to control, harder to predict, and impossible to take for granted. And if she ever truly valued you, that's the exact moment she starts to feel what losing you actually means. And this is where the shift gets real. Because it's not just her ego reacting, it's you stepping into a different standard. When your time stops being automatic, your presence carries weight. Sit with that for a moment. Have you felt how people move differently when you're no longer always available? Share your thoughts in the comments, or simply type, "My time has value." Now let's move into the next sign she can't ignore. Number 5. You improve quietly. She checks your stories expecting sadness and finds elevation. You've been working out, focusing on your craft, tightening your discipline. But you don't post glow-up speeches. You don't throw shade. You just rise in silence. And this is one of the clearest moments her ego can't handle losing you, because your growth no longer carries her name in invisible ink. It's not fueled by proving something. It's fueled by becoming something. There was a time when your progress might have had a hidden audience. Maybe you trained harder after arguments. Maybe you posted certain wins, hoping she'd see what she walked away from. Be honest, most men go through that phase. But now, something is different. You'd still wake up early. You'd still put in the work. You'd still be building your body, your focus, your discipline, even if she never opened your profile again. That's the energetic shift she feels, but can't quite explain. Picture this. She taps your story out of curiosity, maybe even boredom. Part of her expects emotional music, late-night thoughts, subtle pain signals. Instead, she sees structure, routine, forward motion. You look grounded, not flashy, not desperate, just stable and rising. That's what shakes her ego, because improvement driven by pain can be dismissed as temporary. But improvement, driven by identity, that feels permanent. And what unsettles her most is that you're not narrating your growth. You're not saying, "Look how far I've come." You're not trying to trigger regret. You're not even trying to be seen as strong. You just are. When a man stops broadcasting his evolution and simply embodies it, it creates a quiet authority. Her ego can't compete with that because it can't hook into it. There's no emotional reaction to feed on. This is where Stoicism lives in real life, not quotes. The Stoics believed excellence is built in the unseen hours, the discipline no one claps for, the restraint no one notices, the habits no one praises. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to do the work of being a better man without needing witnesses. That's you now. Like a blade sharpened away from the crowd, your edge becomes real, precisely because it wasn't forged for approval. So when she sees you stronger, calmer, more self-contained, she can't tell herself a comforting story like, "He's just acting fine," or "He's trying to make me jealous." Your quiet improvement has weight. It has consistency. It looks like a man who redirected his emotional energy into self-mastery instead of emotional noise. And that's when her ego starts to feel the truth in a way words never could. She didn't just lose your attention. She lost access to a version of you that no longer needs her to become powerful. Number 6. You don't chase closure. And this right here is one of the moments her ego starts to feel the loss in a way she didn't expect. Because most people are used to emotional negotiations at the end. One more talk, one more explanation, one more emotional scene where someone is trying to squeeze reassurance out of a situation that has already spoken. The old version of you probably felt that pull too. You wanted things to end well. You wanted clarity, neatness, a final emotional bow tied around the story. But now, you're sitting in something far more powerful: acceptance, not coldness, not bitterness, just the quiet understanding that what happened already is the answer. When you stop chasing closure, you stop feeding her ego, the idea that she still controls how you feel. Think about it. If you were still pushing for one last talk, one last explanation, what does that communicate? It says, my emotional state still depends on you participating. But when you don't do that, when you see her distance, her behavior, her inconsistency, and you simply take it at face value, something shifts. You're no longer trying to get her to confirm what you already know. And that's the part her ego struggles with. Because now she's not the judge of the ending. Reality is. Imagine this. She pulls away, communication drops, energy changes. In the past, you might have sent that long message, "Can we talk? I just want to understand." Now, you notice the shift. You feel the truth of it, and you adjust your actions accordingly. No dramatic exit, no emotional speech. You just move differently. Your time, your focus, your availability, they follow what you've seen, not what you wish was true. That calm adjustment is louder than any closure conversation ever could be. This is deeply Stoic, even if you don't call it that. Epictetus taught that peace comes from aligning your mind with reality, instead of demanding reality match your wishes. That's exactly what you're doing here. You're not arguing with what's been shown. You're not trying to rewrite the situation through emotional pressure. You're saying, internally, this is what it is, and letting your behavior reflect that truth. That kind of inner agreement with reality creates a stability most people don't have. And here's where it hits her ego. When you don't chase closure, you remove the emotional stage she might have expected. There's no scene where she gets to feel chosen, pursued, or central to your emotional resolution. You found your own closure in clarity and self-respect. That's uncomfortable for someone who thought they'd always have the final say over how the story feels for you. Your silence isn't confusion, it's understanding. And that quiet understanding is the moment she realizes you're no longer emotionally orbiting her. You're standing on your own ground. Number 7. You stop rewarding mixed signals. Hot one day, cold the next. Then suddenly, I miss you. Before, that kind of message would have pulled you right back into the loop. You'd feel a spark of hope, and just like that, you'd respond with warmth, attention, reassurance, anything to keep the connection alive. But now, you see it differently. You don't chase confusion. You don't treat inconsistency like a mystery to solve. You observe it for what it is, emotional turbulence that she expects you to absorb without question. And instead of bending to it, you simply step back when the effort isn't steady. This is the moment her ego starts to crack, because she's used to those mixed signals keeping you emotionally hooked. She counted on your reaction, your quick replies, your eagerness, your willingness to smooth over the inconsistency. But when you stop rewarding that pattern, when you stop responding like a man who fears losing her, everything shifts. Suddenly, she has to sit with the reality that you're no longer fueled by uncertainty, and that realization hits her harder than she expected. A Stoic example fits perfectly here. Zeno taught the idea of living in agreement with nature, meaning you don't force what doesn't flow in balance. You stop swimming against the current of someone's inconsistency. Instead of trying to control the waves, you let them show you the tide. And in relationships, that means you stop pushing yourself into a dynamic where the emotional weather changes every hour. You choose clarity over chaos, and your calm withdrawal becomes its own kind of truth. Imagine this. She gives you a warm message at midnight, then wakes up cold in the morning. Before, you'd panic, wondering what you did wrong. Now, you take a breath and recognize the pattern. You respond slowly, if at all. Not as punishment, but as self-respect. And that's exactly the moment her ego can't handle losing you, because your steadiness exposes her inconsistency. She's no longer in control of the emotional rhythm. You are. When you stop rewarding mixed signals, you don't just change the dynamic, you redefine your value. And that quiet shift is often what wakes her up more than any long conversation ever could. This shift deserves a moment of honesty with yourself, because it's not just a change in how you deal with her, it's a change in how you carry your standards. Notice how different it feels when you stop reacting out of fear of losing someone and start responding from self-respect. That's growth most people never talk about. Take a second and really sit with that. Share your experience in the comments. What did you start seeing clearly once you stopped entertaining mixed signals? Or, if this message resonates, simply type, "I choose clarity over confusion." Let's see who's truly stepping into this steadier mindset before we move into the next sign. Number 8. She sees you're fine without her. And here's where everything shifts. You're not pretending. You're not forcing a smile to look strong on social media. You're genuinely lighter, like a weight has quietly rolled off your shoulders. Your routine has a rhythm again. Your goals feel sharp again. You wake up with more clarity, more purpose, more direction. And she notices it, even if she never says a word. Because the moment she realizes your life is moving forward without her at the center, that's the moment her ego starts to wobble. She can no longer comfort herself with the idea that you're waiting, that you're stuck, that she still has emotional gravity over you. It almost surprises her, honestly. She expected silence to break you. She expected distance to pull you back. Instead, it freed you. And nothing challenges someone's ego more than watching a man grow in the exact space she thought would make him shrink. You'll see this shift in subtle ways. Maybe she starts checking your stories again. Maybe she asks mutual friends how you've been. Maybe she tries to float a casual message just to see where you stand. But underneath all of that, it's not curiosity, it's ego trying to regain certainty. She thought your world would pause without her. Instead, it expanded. From a Stoic lens, this moment is powerful. Stoic flourishing has never been about being chosen or validated by another person. It's about cultivating inner harmony that doesn't rise and fall based on someone else's decisions. Think of Marcus Aurelius reminding himself that the actions of others are outside our control, but our response, our discipline, our direction remain ours alone. When your joy comes from your own alignment instead of her attention, it reflects that same Stoic steadiness. And that's what hits her ego hardest, because now she's witnessing a truth she hoped wasn't real. You're not just surviving without her, you're becoming someone even stronger. Someone she no longer gets to influence. Someone who no longer needs her to feel whole. And that's the exact moment her ego can't handle losing you. Number 9. You set one clean boundary. No long lecture, no emotional threats, just one calm line. I'm not okay with that. And then you stop talking. You don't hover. You don't explain it 3 different ways. You don't wait around to see if she agrees. You step back and let the space do the talking. And this is often the exact moment her ego can't handle losing you, because for the first time, she feels the weight of a decision she can't negotiate away. Most men turn boundaries into debates. They try to soften them so they won't be rejected. They over-explain so they won't seem difficult. But when you set a boundary cleanly and calmly, something very different happens. There's no emotional charge for her to push against. No insecurity to exploit. No guilt to pull you back in. All she's left with is the reality that access to you now comes with standards. Here's what that looks like in real life. Maybe she cancels last minute again, or casually disrespects something you already talked about. Old, you might have swallowed it or turned it into a long conversation. This time, you simply say, "That doesn't work for me," and you move on with your day. No anger, no sarcasm, just self-respect. And that silence afterward, that's what hits her. Because now she has to sit with the idea that she may have just crossed a line she can't uncross. This is where Stoicism quietly shows up. Musonius Rufus taught that self-control is the foundation of virtue. Not dominance, not winning, not being liked. Self-control. Your boundary isn't punishment, it's discipline. It's you refusing to betray your own standards just to keep someone comfortable. A Stoic doesn't protect his peace by arguing louder. He protects it by knowing when enough is enough. And here's the part most people miss. Her ego doesn't react because you were harsh. It reacts because you were steady. You didn't need her approval to hold your ground. You didn't threaten to leave, but you showed, calmly, that you could. That's when the dynamic shifts. Because now, she's not testing your patience anymore. She's facing the possibility of losing access to a man who knows his worth and doesn't negotiate it away. So, if you're watching this and wondering why one simple sentence can feel more powerful than 1,000 explanations, this is why. Boundaries spoken once, calmly, and backed by action don't just protect your peace, they reveal it. And when your peace becomes non-negotiable, that's often the moment her ego finally realizes what's actually at stake. Number 10. You walk away without anger. And most people don't understand how powerful that moment really is, especially when we're talking about the moment her ego can't handle losing you. See, anger is easy to categorize. If you explode, argue, or try to get the last word, her mind can say, "He's hurt, he's emotional, I still affect him." That gives the ego comfort. It puts her back in a position of emotional control. But when you leave calmly, when your voice stays steady, when your energy doesn't spike or crash, something deeply unsettling happens on her side. She can't place you. She can't say you're bitter, and she can't say you're begging. You become unreadable in a way that quietly shakes her. You're not slamming doors. You're not trying to teach her a lesson. You simply leave with dignity, no bitterness, no drama. And that's what confuses her ego the most, because she can't label you as broken or desperate. Imagine this. She expected one last emotional scene, maybe a long message, maybe you trying to explain your pain or make her feel guilty. Instead, you just say, "I understand, take care," and your behavior actually matches your words. You don't stalk her stories. You don't send late-night paragraphs. Your absence is clean. That's the moment her ego starts whispering, "Wait, why isn't he reacting the way others did?" This is where a bit of Stoicism comes in. Not as a philosophy you quote to look wise, but as something you live. Marcus Aurelius believed the strongest revenge is refusing to become like what hurt you. You don't mirror chaos, you outgrow it. When you choose calm over retaliation, you're saying, without words, "My character matters more than this situation." That level of self-control is rare. And because it's rare, it's powerful. Her ego was prepared to fight, defend, or dismiss you. It wasn't prepared for a man who can feel deeply and still remain composed. So when you walk away without anger, you're not being passive. You're demonstrating emotional strength. You're showing that your peace is more important than proving a point. And that's the exact moment her ego struggles the most, because she's no longer dealing with a man trying to win her. She's facing a man who has already chosen himself. Before we move on, take a quiet moment with this. Think about the last time you chose calm instead of reaction, dignity instead of drama. How did that feel in your body? How did it change the dynamic? This isn't about her anymore. It's about the power of self-control and the peace that comes when you stop trying to be understood and start standing firm in who you are. Let that question sit with you as we continue. Number 11. She comes back, you stay the same. Her ego expects you to collapse the moment she returns. But you don't sprint back, you don't fold, you stay calm, discerning, steady. Same standards, same presence, same pace. That's when she realizes she's not dealing with the old version of you anymore. Before, one random "I miss talking to you" message could have pulled you right back into emotional overdrive. Your schedule would shift, your attention would lock in, and your energy would quietly revolve around her again. But now, when her name pops up on your screen, you don't feel that internal rush. You read it, you breathe, and you respond like a man whose life is already full. You finish your workout, you keep your plans. You answer when it's convenient, not when your anxiety tells you to. And I want you to understand what's really happening here. This is the moment. Her ego can't handle losing you. She didn't just come back to reconnect, she came back to check her influence. Part of her expected the old emotional door to still be wide open. She expected warmth on demand, access without effort, reassurance without accountability. But what she meets instead is emotional consistency. You're polite, but not eager, open, but not leaning forward, present, but not performing. That subtle shift hits deeper than any dramatic speech ever could. Imagine this. She suggests meeting up last minute like she used to, assuming you'll drop everything. The old you probably would've. The new you calmly says, "I've got plans tonight, but maybe another time." No attitude, no punishment, just boundaries. That's when it clicks for her. You didn't get bitter. You didn't get desperate. You got balanced. And balance is hard to manipulate. This is pure Stoic energy without you even calling it that. Marcus Aurelius wrote about being like the promontory against which the waves continually break, yet it stands firm. That firmness isn't loud. It's quiet self-respect. You're no longer reacting from fear of losing her. You're acting from clarity about yourself. Your mood doesn't rise because she's warm, or drop because she's distant. You've stopped outsourcing your emotional stability. And here's the part that really unsettles her ego. You're no longer trying to be chosen. You're observing. You're evaluating. You're deciding whether she still fits the man you've become. That role reversal is powerful, and it's not something you forced, it's something you grew into. You're still the same man in your tone, your kindness, your calm, but internally, you've shifted. You're not reaching anymore. You're rooted. And when she feels that she can no longer pull you closer just by reappearing, that's when she truly realizes she might have actually lost you. What really changes in all of this isn't just the dynamic between you and her, it's the dynamic between you and yourself. You stop abandoning your peace to manage someone else's emotions. You stop shrinking to stay connected. You stop performing to be chosen. And in that quiet shift, you become grounded, steady, and self-led. That's the real transformation. Whether she understands it or not, whether she comes back or not, you've moved into a different kind of strength. The kind that doesn't chase, doesn't panic, and doesn't betray itself for temporary comfort. If this message hit home for you, take a second to like the video so more men can hear this too. Drop a comment below and tell me which moment stood out to you the most. And check out the recommended videos on your screen right now. They'll help you go even deeper into building that calm, disciplined, unshakable mindset. There's a quiet move that changes everything. No drama, no speeches, no need to prove anything. It's the moment you stop reacting from fear and start acting from self-respect. Most men try to earn respect by pushing harder, explaining more, or performing better. But real respect doesn't rise from effort. It rises the moment you become calm, grounded, and hard to shake, and that shift can happen overnight. If this resonates with you, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me for what comes next. Number 1. Take a beat. This sounds simple, almost too simple. But this is the quiet move that changes her respect overnight, and most men skip right past it because their emotions are louder than their awareness. A moment comes when the energy shifts. Maybe she goes cold. Maybe her tone gets sharp. Maybe she says something slightly provocative, just to see where you stand. In the past, you might have rushed to smooth it over, defend yourself, explain your intentions, or fix the vibe before it gets worse. But now, you do something different. You let a second pass, then another. Not as a tactic, not as a game, but as a sign that you are not internally shaken. That small pause communicates more than a speech ever could. It tells her your emotional state isn't in her hands. It shows that tension does not automatically turn into reaction inside you. Most people live on reflex stimulus, then immediate response. But Stoic philosophy always pointed to the space in between. Epictetus taught that what disturbs us is not events, but our judgments about them. In that brief silence, you're choosing not to instantly judge, not to instantly defend, not to instantly chase comfort. You are governing yourself first. And when a man governs himself, his presence feels different, he feels solid. Picture a real moment, she says. You've been distant lately, with a tone that suggests accusation. The old version of you might jump in. Long explanation, emotional reassurance, overcorrecting to prove you care. But the quiet move is this. You hear her, you breathe, and you answer calmly and simply, without urgency. I've just been focused on a few things, but I'm here. No rush, no tension, no emotional scrambling. That steadiness is what lands. She doesn't just hear your words, she feels that you're not afraid of the moment. Women are incredibly sensitive to emotional stability. When you don't get yanked around by every shift, you stop feeling like someone who needs approval to stay grounded. That's where respect grows. Not from dominance, not from coldness, but from the sense that you are anchored in yourself. The pause is small on the outside, but internally, it's powerful. It means you're choosing response over reaction, clarity over impulse, strength over noise. And that quiet strength, that's what changes how she sees you, almost overnight. Number 2, keep it simple. This is one of those quiet moves that doesn't look dramatic from the outside, yet it can change the way she sees you almost overnight. A lot of men lose respect, not because they're bad men, but because they try too hard to be understood. They overload every moment with explanation. They write paragraphs. They defend intentions. They stack reasons like evidence in a courtroom, as if love is a trial, and they're always one sentence away from being found guilty. But a calm man says what he means in a clean line and stops. I'm not okay with that. I'll talk later. I'm busy tonight. Then he lets the words stand on their own feet. That right there is the quiet move. You stop trying to manage her perception with endless language. You stop chasing comfort through over-communication. And something shifts, because simple isn't weak. Simple is solid. When your words get shorter, but your presence gets steadier, she feels the difference. It's like the emotional noise in the room drops. And suddenly, your voice carries more weight without you raising it. Think about a real situation. She cancels plans last minute with a vague excuse. The old version of you might send 3 messages. Is everything okay? Did I do something? We can reschedule if you want. I just need to know where we stand. That energy feels anxious, even if your intentions are good. Now picture the quiet move. You reply, "No worries, we'll talk another time." And then you actually go live your evening. No follow-up, no hidden pressure, no emotional essay. That calm, contained response says, without drama, my life doesn't collapse because one plan changed. Respect grows in that space. Stoicism has a lot to say here, even if you never quote a philosopher out loud. One of its core ideas is this: control what's yours, your words, your actions, your standards, and let go of what isn't. Over-explaining is usually an attempt to control something outside your reach. Her reaction, her interpretation, her emotional state. But the more you try to control those, The more you signal that your inner ground isn't stable. A Stoic man practices proportion. He says what's necessary, not everything he feels in the moment. He trusts that truth delivered calmly is enough. Viewers, this is where your power becomes quiet instead of loud. You're not trying to impress her with emotional speeches. You're not performing depth. You're embodying it. When you say less, but mean it fully, people start leaning in. She starts listening more closely. Not because you're playing games, but because your communication now comes from self-respect, not fear of losing her. And here's the part most men miss. When you stop over-talking, you give her space to feel the weight of your absence, your silence, your boundaries. Words used to fill every gap. Now your presence and your limits do the talking. That's the quiet move that changes her respect. Not louder, not colder, just clearer, steadier, and rooted in a man who doesn't need a paragraph to stand his ground. And this is a good moment to pause and turn the focus inward for a second. Not on what she thinks, not on how she reacts, but on you. How often do you explain past the point of clarity? How often do you talk just to soothe the discomfort of silence? That space between what you feel and what you say is where your growth is happening right now. Take a breath and really look at your own patterns. Because this quiet shift isn't about becoming distant, it's about becoming grounded. If this hit home, drop a comment and share your thoughts, or just type "calm is power," so I know you're with me on this. Number 3, let actions speak. If she's inconsistent, if she disappears, if she gives mixed signals, most men chase clarity. They beg for a label, an explanation, a conversation that finally makes it make sense. But the quiet move is to accept what her behavior already communicates. You don't punish, you don't accuse, you just adjust. You stop investing where effort isn't being matched. Stoic energy is not naive. It reads reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. And when you start responding to actions instead of hopes, respect changes fast. Now here's where this becomes powerful, and this is the part a lot of men miss. The quiet move isn't silence to manipulate her. It's alignment with reality. It's you saying, without drama, I see what's actually happening, and I'm going to move accordingly. That's Marcus Aurelius in real life, not complaining about what people should do, but responding wisely to what they are doing. Let's say she takes hours to reply, cancels plans last minute, or only reaches out when she's bored. The old version of you writes paragraphs. You ask, did I do something wrong? You try to secure your position through words. But the quiet move? You simply stop overextending. You don't rush to reply every time. You don't keep offering your time like it's unlimited. You stay warm, but you become measured. You match energy calmly. No speeches, no emotional performance. And here's the shift she feels almost immediately. Before, your attention was automatic. Now, it's intentional. Before, you were reacting. Now, you're choosing. That's where respect is born, when your presence feels like a decision, not a dependency. Stoicism teaches that your power lives in what you control. Your effort, your time, your focus. Not her mood, not her confusion, not her readiness. You're not withdrawing to hurt her. You're rebalancing because your self-respect requires it. And women read that faster than men think. When your behavior says, I value myself enough not to chase uncertainty, it forces a re-evaluation. Suddenly, you're not the guy trying to secure her. You're the man who is secure with or without her. That's the quiet move. No announcement, no ultimatum, just a shift in how you show up. And, ironically, the moment you stop trying to convince her of your value is the moment she starts to feel it. Number 4, end it calmly. There's a moment when a conversation stops being communication and becomes a test, a trap, a loop. A place where she's trying to pull you into emotion so she can feel in control. And this is exactly where most men lose respect without even realizing it. They stay, they argue, they explain more, they try to win the point, fix the misunderstanding, or prove they're right. But the more emotional energy you pour into that moment, the more it looks like you need the outcome. And neediness, even when disguised as logic, quietly lowers respect. The quiet move that changes her respect overnight is not louder words. It's emotional, non-participation in chaos. It's being able to feel the heat rising and deciding, calmly, this isn't where I operate. So instead of escalating, you say, we'll talk when it's calmer. I'm going to head out. I'm not doing this right now. No sarcasm. No punishment. No dramatic exit. Just clean detachment. You're not storming off. You're stepping out of a dynamic that no longer deserves your presence. Think about how rare that is. Most people can only stay kind when things are easy. A Stoic man stays composed when things get messy. Marcus Aurelius wrote about not becoming like the people who offend you. This is that in real life. She may be frustrated, emotional, or trying to provoke a reaction. Your power shows in what you don't give. You don't give a raised voice. You don't give defensive speeches. You don't give that frantic energy that says, please understand me. You give calm boundaries. Here's a simple example. She says, you never care. You always do this. That's not a problem-solving sentence, that's an emotional hook. The old version of you might say, what do you mean? I do everything. That's not fair. Now you're in the mud. The quiet move sounds more like, I'm open to talking about this, but not like this. Let's pause. And then you actually pause. You don't circle back 5 minutes later with another paragraph. You don't text a follow-up explanation. You let space do the work. That space is where respect grows. Because now she sees something different. You're not controlled by the moment. You're not scared of distance. You're not scrambling to repair emotional tension instantly. You trust that if something is worth resolving, it can survive a calm pause. That signals inner stability. And stability feels safe, even if she doesn't admit it out loud. This is Stoicism in motion, not in quotes. It's the discipline of choosing your response instead of being dragged by impulse. You're not avoiding. You're regulating. You're saying, through your behavior, my peace matters too. And when a man shows he won't sacrifice his self-control just to keep a conversation going, something shifts. She may still be upset in the moment, but underneath that, respect clicks into place, because she's no longer dealing with a man she can emotionally steer at will, but one who leads himself first. Number 5. Don't double text. This one sounds small, but it's huge, and it fits perfectly into the quiet move that changes her respect overnight, because this is not about texting rules, it's about emotional posture. When she doesn't reply, most men don't just feel the silence. They try to erase it. They follow up with, hey, then, are you mad? Then, I just want to talk. Then, a long emotional explanation that keeps getting longer the more anxious they feel. From the outside, it looks like effort. From her side, it feels like pressure. And underneath all of it, the message being sent is, I can't sit comfortably in a moment where I don't have reassurance from you. Now imagine the quiet move instead. You send one clear message. Then you put the phone down and go back to your life, your work, your workout, your plans, your purpose. No second ping. No emotional essay. No attempt to manage her perception in real time. That space where most men panic? You stay steady there. That's the shift. That's the moment respect changes, even if she never says it out loud. Because calm in uncertainty signals strength more loudly than words ever could. Here's a simple real-life example. You text her about plans for the weekend. Hours pass. An insecure pattern says, "Fix it. Don't lose momentum." So a guy sends, "Did you see my message?" Then, "It's okay if you're busy." Then something funny to regain warmth. He's trying to control the emotional outcome. But the calm man, he notices the silence, shrugs internally, and continues his day. If she replies later, great. If not, his evening still happens. That is emotional independence in action, and women feel that difference instantly. Stoicism talks about focusing on what's in your control and releasing what isn't. Her timing, her mood, her response speed, not yours. Your response to the space? Fully yours. When you don't double text, you are silently saying, "My emotional state is not hanging from this conversation." That's powerful. That's grounded. That's rare. And here's the part most men miss. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to shake. When your nervous system doesn't spike just because there's a pause, you stop relating from fear of loss. You relate from stability. And stability is what respect grows on. Silence stops feeling like a threat and starts becoming just another neutral moment in a full life. So the quiet move isn't loud, dramatic, or confrontational. It's simply this: you don't chase the gap. You let space exist without trying to fill it. And in that space, she doesn't feel your anxiety anymore. She feels your self-control. That's when her perception shifts from "he needs connection" to "he chooses connection." And that difference, that's where respect lives. And this is where I want you to pause for a second and look at your own patterns, not hers. Think about the last time silence showed up between you and someone you cared about. What did it bring out of you? Calm presence, or the urge to fix, fill, and chase? Be honest with yourself, because this quiet move only works when it's real, not performed. Drop a comment and share what silence usually triggers in you. Or just write, "I stay steady in the space." Sometimes awareness of the pattern is the first moment real change and real respect begins. Number 6. Step back quietly. This is one of the quiet moves that changes her respect overnight, and most men completely misunderstand it. Stepping back isn't drama. It isn't punishment. And it definitely isn't you trying to teach her a lesson. It's you adjusting your energy to match reality. You're not disappearing in anger. You're repositioning in calm. There's a big difference. When a man is anxious, he leans in harder the moment he feels distance. He texts more, tries to be funnier, more available, more understanding, more everything. But when a man is grounded, he notices the shift. And instead of chasing balance, he creates balance by pulling his energy back to himself. Think about a simple example. You're always the one starting conversations. You're the one checking in, planning, carrying the emotional weight. One day you notice she's replying slower, investing less, giving half energy. Most men panic there. They double effort. But the quiet move is this: you don't complain. You don't accuse. You don't send a speech about effort. You just stop over-functioning. You answer when she reaches out. You stay kind. But your life is no longer on hold, waiting for her attention. Your focus shifts back to your work, your body, your routine, your peace. No announcement, no emotional performance. Just a calm shift in where your energy lives. That's where the Stoic element comes in. Stoicism teaches that you don't control other people's behavior. You control your response and where you place your attention. When you step back quietly, you're practicing emotional self-governance. You're saying, without saying it, "My stability doesn't depend on how available you are today." That's powerful. Not loud, powerful. silent powerful. And women feel that shift immediately, even if they can't explain it. Respect rises in that space, because you're no longer positioned as someone orbiting her. You're a man with gravity of his own. Your time becomes something she has to step toward, not something that's constantly stepping toward her. And the crazy part? You didn't argue for respect. You didn't demand better treatment. You simply stopped overgiving where it wasn't being valued. This move changes the emotional dynamic overnight because it reveals something rare. You can care without clinging. You can be present without chasing. You can step back without bitterness. That combination signals strength, self-respect, and emotional independence all at once. And when a man quietly returns to his center like that, people don't just notice, they adjust. Number 7. Stop over-explaining. Over-explaining usually comes from fear. Fear she'll misunderstand you. Fear she'll leave. Fear you'll be seen as the bad guy. But when you peel it back, what you're really afraid of is losing control of the moment. And here's the quiet move that changes her respect overnight. You stop trying to manage her perception, and you start trusting your own steadiness. When you say something once, clearly and calmly, and then you let it stand, you show a level of self-possession most men never reach. Think about the last time you sent a long paragraph trying to make sure she gets it. You probably wrote it, deleted it, rewrote it, added context, softened a sentence, justified a detail because you were trying to prevent a reaction. But the truth is, every additional line silently communicates, I need you to approve this so I can relax. And the moment she feels you need emotional permission from her just to feel secure, her respect shifts downward. Now imagine a different scenario. You tell her, hey, I didn't like how that felt. Let's talk later. And you stop. No extra explanation. No emotional essay. No chasing clarity. She may pause. She may even test you to see if you'll fold and start padding your message with more justification. But you don't. You hold your line. Suddenly, she sees something she didn't expect. This man isn't scrambling to prevent conflict. He's grounded enough to let a moment breathe. That's where the Stoic layer comes in. Stoicism teaches that your peace comes from acting with integrity, not from convincing others to validate your feelings. A Stoic man doesn't defend himself endlessly because he knows his character is revealed by what he does, not by how many sentences he uses to protect his image. When you stop over-explaining, you're not being cold. You're showing that your sense of self isn't shaped by someone else's temporary emotion. And viewers, this is the quiet move most men never master. You step into emotional adulthood. You explain once. You stand still. You let the moment do what it does. And in that calm, controlled space, her respect for you rises, not because you demanded it, but because you showed you don't need to beg for it. Number 8. Hold your standards. This is one of the quiet moves that changes her respect overnight, and most guys don't even realize when they're failing it. A lot of men say they have standards. They talk about what they won't tolerate, how they deserve honesty, respect, consistency. But the moment they really like a woman, those standards start bending. Suddenly, the late replies are understandable. The flakiness gets excuses. The mixed signals get analyzed instead of addressed. And without saying it out loud, the message she receives is clear. My rules disappear when I'm afraid to lose you. That's where respect quietly drops. A calm man moves differently. He doesn't make speeches about his values. He doesn't post quotes. He doesn't warn her what will happen. He simply lives in a way where his standards are real whether she's there or not. If she cancels last minute for the third time, he doesn't argue or guilt trip her. He just stops over-investing. If she speaks to him in a way that crosses a line, he doesn't explode, but he also doesn't laugh it off, just to keep things smooth. His energy shifts. His availability shifts. His effort adjusts, not as punishment, as alignment. This is deeply Stoic, even if you've never read a Stoic book. Stoicism isn't about being cold. It's about valuing your character more than temporary comfort. It's choosing virtue, self-respect, composure, integrity over the short-term relief of keeping someone pleased with you. Discomfort doesn't scare you into self-betrayal. And that's powerful because most people do trade their values to avoid emotional tension. Let's make it real. Imagine she disappears for 2 days, then comes back like nothing happened. The old version of you would be relieved she replied at all. You'd act normal, maybe even extra nice, just to keep the connection alive. The calm version of you doesn't chase that relief. You respond, but you don't reward inconsistency with extra effort. Your tone is steady, your energy measured. She feels the difference. Not drama, not anger, just a man who doesn't rearrange himself for attention. And here's the shift. When she realizes you won't bend your core just because you like her, she stops seeing you as someone she can test endlessly. You become someone she has to meet, not manage. That's the quiet power. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't give ultimatums. You just held your line calmly. Respect doesn't rise because you demand it. It rises because your behavior says, I like you, but I like my values too, and those aren't up for negotiation. That's the real turning point when your standards stop being something you say and start being something you quietly live. Take a second and check in with yourself. Have you been bending your rules just because you're afraid to lose someone? If this hit you even a little, tap like so this message reaches more men who need it, and drop a comment, sharing what part landed hardest for you, or just type, I won't bend for attention, so I know you're still here, and you're choosing your values first. Now, let's go deeper into the next quiet move that shifts her respect even more. Number 9. Stay unbothered. This doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you don't perform your emotions to control her. And this is the quiet move that changes her respect overnight. Because most reactions in dating are emotional performances. Anger to scare her, long texts to convince her, silence to punish her. Those are all attempts to manage her behavior. But when you stay unbothered as a state, not an act, the dynamic shifts. If she tries to provoke jealousy, reply late, test your patience, or act unpredictable, you stay steady. You don't punish. You don't chase. You don't spiral. You keep your posture. The unbothered man is hard to manipulate, and people naturally respect what they can't easily push around. Stoicism calls this inner stability, the ability to stay grounded while the outside is noisy. Think about a simple moment. She takes hours to respond. Most guys start overthinking, send a follow-up, or change their tone when she finally replies. You don't. You notice it, but you don't build a story around it. You put the phone down and go back to your life work, gym, your goals. When you answer later, your tone is normal. No edge, no hidden message. That consistency quietly says, my emotional state doesn't rise and fall based on small changes in your behavior. That's rare energy, and rare energy earns respect fast. Now take it a step further. Maybe she cancels plans last minute or seems distant one day and warm the next. The emotional performer reacts to every shift like it's a crisis. His mood mirrors hers. His attention spikes when she pulls away and fades when she comes close. But when you're truly unbothered, your rhythm stays your rhythm. You don't reward inconsistency with extra effort. You don't punish it with coldness either. You simply stay the same man. That emotional self-control communicates something powerful without you ever saying it. I'm not here to manage feelings. I'm here to live my life. This is Stoic in practice. You don't control her timing, mood, or tests. You control your response. When you stop trying to control the outside and start governing the inside, you become solid. Unbothered doesn't mean you have no standards. It means you don't get emotionally hooked. If her behavior becomes a pattern, you calmly adjust your investment without drama. Less availability, less energy, less access, but still respectful, still composed. And that's the part most people miss. You're not acting unbothered to make her react. You actually become less reactive. That's why the respect shift is real. She can feel when a man is holding himself together just to impress her. And she can feel when a man is steady, because that's just who he is now. That calm, grounded presence makes her see you differently. Self-led, emotionally disciplined, and not easy to shake. And when someone realizes they can't move you with mood swings or mixed signals, they start meeting you with a different level of seriousness. Number 10. Choose peace. Sometimes the strongest move is not continuing the fight, the debate, the who's right conversation. You choose peace. You choose sleep. You choose your gym session, your work, your purpose, your life. And when she sees that you value your peace more than proving a point, it changes the dynamic. The man who can walk away from chaos is a man who isn't addicted to emotional intensity. Stoic men live by this. Protect the mind, protect the life. I want you to really see how powerful this is. Most men think respect comes from winning arguments, getting the last word, or making sure she understands every detail of why they're right. But the quiet move that changes her respect overnight is when you stop treating every disagreement like a battlefield. You don't raise your voice. You don't type out emotional essays at midnight. You don't stay up replaying the conversation in your head. You look at the situation and think, my peace is worth more than this moment. And then you actually act like it. Imagine this. It's late. The conversation is going in circles. She's frustrated, maybe testing, maybe just emotional. Old you would have stayed, trying to fix it, explain it, solve it right now. But this time you say calmly, we'll talk later. I'm going to sleep. Not cold, not dramatic, just steady. Then you actually go to bed. You wake up early, hit the gym, focus on your day. That's the quiet move. You didn't abandon the relationship. You refused to abandon yourself. That's Stoic strength in real life. Marcus Aurelius wrote about guarding the mind like a fortress. Not every knock on the gate deserves to be let in. When you choose peace, you show that your emotional state isn't controlled by the noise around you, and that's what shifts respect. Because now, she's not dealing with a man who needs emotional storms to feel connected. She's dealing with a man who can step out of chaos and still stand solid. And here's the part most guys miss. Peace is attractive because it feels safe. A man who can walk away from drama without anger is a man who knows who he is. When you consistently choose peace over proving a point, she starts to feel it. The dynamic changes quietly, but deeply. You're no longer reacting. You're leading yourself first. And that's where real respect begins. Number 11. Level up in silence. This is where respect becomes unavoidable. You stop trying to show her, and you start building you. You get sharper, more disciplined, more focused. You fix the parts of your life you've been neglecting, and you don't announce it. No speeches, no watch me glow up posts. Just progress. Quiet improvement hits harder than loud promises, because it's real. Stoicism is self-mastery, not self-display. And when she sees you rising without needing her validation, she feels the shift. Most men never make it to this level, because their growth is still emotional. It rises and falls based on how she treats them. If she's warm, they're motivated. If she's distant, they spiral. That means their direction is still in someone else's hands. But the quiet move that changes her respect overnight happens when your development becomes non-negotiable. Your discipline isn't a reaction anymore. It's a decision. Whether she texts or not, whether things feel good or uncertain, you still move forward. Think about the difference. Before, you might have said, "I'll start getting in shape," but only after an argument or a breakup scare. The energy behind it was fear of losing her. Now, you train because being strong is part of who you are. Before, you might have tried to improve your career just to impress her. Now you improve it because you refuse to live below your potential. The motivation shifts from external to internal. And that shift is deeply Stoic. The Stoics believed your life should be guided by virtue and discipline, not by emotional weather. Let's make it real. She hasn't replied in hours. The old version of you checks her last scene, replays conversations, loses focus. The new version notices the thought, but doesn't follow it. You put the phone down and finish what you started. You keep your word to yourself. That's self-respect in action. You're no longer negotiating with your impulses, and women feel that stability even when nothing is being said. What makes this powerful is that you're not withdrawing to manipulate. You're not going silent as a tactic. You're just busy becoming better. There's no edge in your behavior, no bitterness. You're calmer, clearer, less available for drama because your life has weight again. Stoicism teaches that the highest form of control is control over yourself, not over others. When you embody that, your presence changes without you explaining anything. And here's the part many men miss: when your improvement is quiet, it looks permanent. Loud promises feel like temporary emotion. Silent consistency feels like a man who has crossed a line internally and isn't going back. She starts to sense that if she's in your life, it's because she adds to it, not because you're waiting to be chosen. That realization alone changes the dynamic. You're not chasing her attention anymore. You're earning your own respect daily. And when a man respects himself through action, not words, the world responds differently. She responds differently. Because now she's not dealing with potential, she's witnessing proof. And this is a good moment to pause and check your own pattern. Are you building yourself in silence because it's who you are now, or only when her energy shakes you? Be honest. Where have you been negotiating with your discipline? Waiting for a text, a sign, a mood to decide how you show up? If this hit you, take 10 seconds and reflect on one area you'll upgrade this week without announcing it to anyone. Then drop a comment with the one word you're choosing to live by right now. Discipline. Let's uncover the next insight together. Number 12. Only meet respect. Here's the final quiet move. You only meet her where respect lives. And I want you to really sit with that, because this is where the shift happens. This is the move that changes her respect overnight. Not because you force it, not because you demand it, but because your standards quietly become non-negotiable. You're no longer reacting to how she feels in the moment. You're responding to how she shows up consistently. That's a Stoic principle in real life. You don't control others. You control what you allow into your space. A lot of men say they want respect, but they still meet her in places where respect clearly doesn't exist. She disappears for days, then comes back with a casual, "Hey, stranger," and he responds like nothing happened. She avoids accountability, blames moods, circumstances, or confusion, and he still offers the same access, the same time, the same emotional availability. What message does that send? It tells her that effort is optional with you, that your presence is guaranteed, even when her behavior is inconsistent. Respect can't grow in that environment. Now picture the quiet move instead. She comes back after distance, but this time, you're different. You're calm, not cold, polite, not bitter, but you're observant. You notice whether her actions match her words. Is she consistent now? Does she follow through? Does she take responsibility for past behavior without being pushed? If yes, you meet her there. You're open, grounded, steady, not overeager, not guarded, just solid. That balance is powerful. It says, I'm here, but only in a healthy dynamic. But if she returns with the same games, the same emotional chaos, the same half-effort energy, you don't lecture. You don't try to teach her how to treat you. You don't deliver long speeches about what you deserve. You simply stop meeting her at that level. Your replies get shorter. Your availability shrinks. Your energy goes back to your life, your purpose, your peace, not as punishment, but as alignment. This is Stoic discipline. You withdraw from what disturbs your inner order. And this is where respect changes. Because for the first time, she feels a boundary she can't talk her way around. She feels that access to you now requires something real, not perfection, not performance, just maturity and consistency. Overnight respect doesn't come from you being louder, tougher, or more emotional. It comes from you becoming unmoved by anything that doesn't meet your standard. That's the quiet power. You're not trying to change her. You're changing what you participate in. And when a man does that calmly, without drama, without anger, without chasing, his value becomes clear in a way words never could. What really changes everything isn't something you announce, it's something you become. When you stop trying to control every outcome, every emotion, every reaction, and you start leading yourself with calm, self-respect, and quiet discipline, the entire dynamic shifts. You're no longer chasing understanding, chasing reassurance, or chasing validation. You're grounded, measured, intentional. And whether she says it or not, whether she can explain it or not, she feels that difference. Respect doesn't rise because you demanded it. It rises because your energy now says, I'm centered in myself, with or without you. That's the quiet move. That's the power. And that's a shift no one can ignore. If this message hit you at the right time, go ahead and like the video so more men can hear it. Drop a comment and tell me which of these quiet moves you're already working on, or which one you know you need to master next. And if you're ready to go deeper into calm confidence and self-respect, check out the recommended videos on your screen right now. That's where we keep building. You've probably seen it before. A guy stops chasing, stops overreacting, stops trying to control everything, and suddenly people treat him differently. Women respond differently. Conversations feel lighter. Respect increases. It's not magic. It's the shift from emotional impulse to emotional discipline. And women are incredibly sensitive to that change. In this video, we'll break down exactly what they notice when a man becomes calm and why this kind of energy is so rare today. If you've felt that shift happening in you, even a little hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment so I know you're on this path. And if you know a brother who needs this message, share this video with him. Number 1. His energy stops asking. One of the first shifts a woman notices when a man becomes calm is subtle enough that it rarely registers as a conscious observation at first, yet powerful enough that it changes the emotional texture of every interaction. His energy is no longer asking for something. He is no longer leaning forward emotionally, no longer sending signals that say, validate me, reassure me, tell me I'm doing this right, or confirm that I still matter. There is no quiet pressure behind his presence, no invisible hook hidden inside his words, no need for her mood, tone, or responsiveness to stabilize his inner state. He shows up without reaching, speaks without fishing, listens without waiting for permission to exist in the moment. And that absence of need creates a space that feels unfamiliar to someone who is used to men subtly performing for attention, approval, or emotional certainty. When a man is calm in this way, his presence carries a different message, not spoken directly, but felt immediately. I am here because I choose to be, not because I need something from you. This does not feel loud, dominant, or theatrical. In fact, it often feels quiet, grounded, and strangely disarming. There is no urgency in his tone, no tension beneath his patience, no emotional bargaining hidden behind politeness. He does not attempt to win her mood, soften her resistance, or manage her reactions. And because of that, the interaction no longer feels like a transaction where attention must be earned or maintained. What replaces that dynamic is a steady, self-contained energy that does not push or pull, and paradoxically, that stillness often draws more awareness than effort ever did. This is where Stoic calm reveals its real power, because a man grounded in this mindset understands something many never do. Peace is not borrowed from another person's approval. If confidence collapses the moment attention fades, then it was never confidence to begin with, only dependency dressed up as certainty. A calm man does not outsource his sense of worth to someone else's reactions, availability, or affection. He carries it with him, quietly, consistently, without needing to announce it. His self-respect shows not in how much he asserts himself, but in how little he needs to prove. And once your energy stops asking, once you are no longer negotiating for reassurance through presence, tone, or timing, something else begins to shift naturally, because the absence of need changes not only how you show up, but how you respond. And that is where your reactions start changing too. Number 2, he responds, not reacts. When a man becomes truly calm, one of the most noticeable changes is not found in what he says, but in what he no longer does. He no longer allows himself to be pulled into emotional chaos simply because tension has entered the room. Raised voices, mixed signals, discomfort, or uncertainty no longer act like triggers that hijack his nervous system. He does not explode to reassert control. He does not rush to defend himself to restore equilibrium. And he does not spiral inward trying to decode what went wrong in real time. Instead, he remains where he is internally centered, able to hear something unsettling without losing his balance, able to sit with friction without needing to immediately neutralize it. Women notice this because most men, even well-intentioned ones, become highly predictable under emotional pressure. They argue in order to feel powerful again, chase in order to feel connected again, or withdraw in confusion when their efforts fail. These reactions are not choices, they are reflexes. They happen so quickly that the man often believes he is responding, when in reality, he is being driven by an unexamined impulse to restore comfort as fast as possible. A calm man interrupts that pattern. He pauses. He allows the moment to exist without rushing to fix it. He gives himself the space to think, to assess, and to decide what actually deserves a response and what simply deserves time. This pause is not passive, and it is not indifference. It is active restraint. It is the difference between being controlled by emotion and being in relationship with it. From a Stoic perspective, this is the discipline of the mind in its most practical form. Understanding that someone else's emotions are not instructions you are required to follow. Just because tension appears does not mean action is necessary. Just because discomfort arises does not mean resolution must be immediate. A man grounded in this discipline understands that he does not need to win every moment, clarify every misunderstanding, or stabilize every emotional shift in real time in order to maintain his dignity. What makes this so noticeable is the contrast. Where others rush, he slows. Where others escalate, he steadies. Where others try to regain control through force or explanation, he remains anchored in choice. And that steadiness communicates something deeper than words ever could. That his inner state is not fragile, and that emotional turbulence does not grant automatic authority over his behavior. This steadiness, this ability to remain centered without reacting, becomes most visible in one area where many men struggle the most, and where calm speaks louder than any response ever could silence. Number 3, he doesn't fear silence. Silence reveals far more than words ever could, because it removes the mirrors insecure men rely on to reassure themselves that they still exist in someone else's emotional field. When messages go unanswered, when conversations pause, when there is no immediate reaction to lean on, many men feel an internal pressure to act. They send an extra text to clarify, follow up to soften what was already said, or reinsert themselves into the moment out of fear that quiet means distance, distance means loss, and loss means failure. Silence, for them, feels like a verdict. A calm man experiences that same silence very differently. Imagine a simple moment. He sends a message, and hours pass without a reply, where an insecure man begins constructing explanations, regrets, or strategies. The calm man notices the space and allows it to remain what it is, empty, unresolved, neutral. He does not reread his words looking for mistakes. He does not attempt to regain emotional footing by adding more noise. He continues his day, anchored in his own rhythm, not because he is detached or cold, but because his sense of self is not dependent on immediate confirmation. Women notice this because silence usually exposes anxiety, and anxiety leaks through behavior even when words sound confident. They notice that he doesn't rush to fill the gap, doesn't perform urgency, doesn't treat quiet as a problem to be solved. Another example appears during in-person moments, a pause in conversation, a reflective quiet after something meaningful is said. Most men instinctively rush to fill that space with humor, reassurance, or explanations. A calm man lets the silence breathe. He understands that not every moment requires commentary, and that presence does not vanish simply because sound does. Stoicism frames this as a form of inner sufficiency. If you cannot sit with yourself in quiet, the Stoics would argue, you will endlessly chase external stimuli to escape your own unease. Silence becomes unbearable only when your thoughts feel unsafe to inhabit. A calm man has made peace with that inner terrain. He knows that quiet does not diminish him, and because of that, it does not pressure him into unnecessary action. Once silence stops feeling like a threat, once you no longer rush to protect yourself from it, the way you engage with others begins to shift as well. Your limits become clearer, your presence becomes firmer, and your boundaries begin to sound different without you ever having to raise your voice. Before we move on, pause and ask yourself, how many times have you broken your own peace just to escape silence? That shift from reacting to quiet to standing steady in it is where real emotional strength begins. If this resonates, show some love to the video and drop a comment sharing your thoughts, or simply type, "My silence speaks for me." That small statement is more than engagement. It's a decision about the kind of man you're becoming. Number 4. His standards feel calm, not controlling. When a man becomes calm, his standards do not disappear, but they stop carrying emotional weight meant to intimidate, persuade, or pressure. He does not weaponize boundaries as threats, nor does he disguise insecurity as firmness. There is no guilt woven into his limits, no performative seriousness meant to force compliance, and no hidden demand for validation embedded in what he will or will not tolerate. His standards exist quietly, almost unannounced, and that quiet is precisely what makes them noticeable. A calm man does not explain his boundaries as if he is on trial, and he does not dramatize them to make sure they are taken seriously. If something does not work for him, he says so plainly. That doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that. I'm not doing confusion. These statements land without sharp edges, not because they are weak, but because they are settled. There is no emotional escalation behind them, no resentment waiting to surface if they are challenged. He is not trying to control behavior. He is simply stating how he will participate. Women notice this difference almost immediately because angry boundaries often feel reactive, brittle, and defensive, as if they are protecting something fragile underneath. When a boundary is delivered with frustration, it often signals fear of being disrespected, abandoned, or overlooked. A calm boundary signals something else entirely: clarity. It communicates that the man knows where he stands, regardless of whether the other person agrees, adjusts, or walks away. There is no attempt to manage her reaction, because his sense of stability does not depend on her response. Consider a simple example. Plans change last minute, communication becomes inconsistent, or expectations shift without explanation. Many men respond by lecturing, demanding reassurance, or withdrawing with visible frustration. A calm man acknowledges what he sees and states his position without charge. He does not punish, plead, or posture. If alignment is not there, he accepts that information and moves accordingly. The boundary is not a negotiation. It is a reflection of how he has chosen to structure his life. Stoically speaking, this is the difference between living by impulses and living by principles. Impulses react to the moment, chasing relief or control. Principles remain steady across moments, independent of mood or pressure. A calm man builds his life around values he has already decided on, not around emotional reactions that shift with circumstance. And when a man operates from that kind of internal alignment, he becomes difficult to destabilize, because there is nothing external left to grab onto. And when a man has that kind of clarity, when his standards are rooted in values rather than emotion, he becomes harder to shake, not because he resists more, but because he no longer needs to. Number 5. He becomes harder to manipulate. When a man becomes calm, one of the most important shifts is not how he behaves when things are clear, but how he responds when things are not. Because in real life, clarity is not always offered freely. People, both men and women, often test the emotional environment around them, sometimes consciously, sometimes without realizing it, through mixed signals, inconsistency, hot and cold behavior, or subtle emotional games designed to gauge what they can get away with. This does not always come from malice. More often, it comes from insecurity, immaturity, or a lack of self-awareness. But regardless of the source, these dynamics rely on one thing to function: emotional reactivity. A calm man quietly removes that fuel. He does not reward confusion with extra effort, nor does he interpret inconsistency as a challenge to prove his value. Where an insecure man leans forward, seeking clarity through pursuit, explanation, or overinvestment, the calm man leans inward. He observes patterns rather than isolated moments. He notices how words align with behavior over time. He allows situations to reveal themselves without rushing to rescue them. And once he has enough information, he decides how to proceed, not from anxiety, but from alignment with his standards. Women notice this shift because emotional stability disrupts familiar leverage points. When a man no longer reacts predictably to withdrawal, ambiguity, or emotional fluctuation, the dynamic changes, not because he becomes rigid or unfeeling, but because he is no longer operating from need. He does not chase confusion, hoping it will resolve into certainty. He does not negotiate for consistency. He simply adjusts his presence based on what is actually happening, rather than what he hopes might happen. That lack of desperation removes the subtle control that emotional volatility often creates. Consider a simple example. Communication becomes inconsistent. Warmth appears and disappears without explanation. Many men respond by increasing effort, asking for reassurance, or attempting to fix the dynamic through more availability. A calm man does the opposite. He does not confront emotionally or withdraw in protest. He reduces investment until clarity returns, or he moves on without drama. The power shift happens quietly, not through dominance, but through self-regulation. Stoicism names this plainly. If someone can control your emotions, they can control you. Reactivity hands over authority. Calmness reclaims it. A man who governs his internal state is free from being steered by external moods. And that freedom is not loud or confrontational. It is steady. And that steadiness begins to affect more than just how he responds. It reshapes how he perceives others altogether. Once a man is no longer entangled in emotional control, Once his inner freedom is intact, the way he listens changes as well, because he is no longer listening to protect himself, he is listening to understand. Number 6. He listens like he's not on trial. When a man is not calm, listening rarely means listening. It usually means preparing to explain himself, to justify his intentions, to correct how he is being perceived, or to defend an identity he feels is constantly under evaluation. Every pause in the other person's words becomes a moment to rehearse a response. Every emotional cue feels like evidence being presented, and the conversation turns into a subtle courtroom, where he is both the defendant and the advocate. He may appear attentive on the surface, but internally he is bracing, measuring, and strategizing, trying to survive the exchange without losing ground. A calm man listens from an entirely different place. He is not experiencing the conversation as a test of worth, so he does not treat feedback as a threat. He listens to understand, not to secure approval or escape judgment. Because his ego is not on the line in every interaction, he can remain open without becoming porous, present without becoming reactive. He allows the other person to finish their thought without interrupting, not because he is passive, but because he is not in a hurry to protect himself. And women notice this immediately, because being truly heard carries a sense of safety that no amount of charm or articulation can replace. Consider how this shows up in real moments. A woman expresses frustration, disappointment, or uncertainty. An insecure man hears accusation and rushes to clarify, explain, or fix, often talking